Now.
Now.
We're at now.
Now.
Everything that happens now is happening now.
When will then be now?
No.
No, wait, what?
Why can't we go back? Go back to then. I can't. Why not? We missed it. When? Just now. When will then be now? Soon. Sir, we've identified their location. Where? Somewhere in the sands of Vega. When? By high noon tomorrow, they will be our prisoners. Who? Classic.
Plastic.
Mr. Bombastic.
Well, Riley's back in the studio. I mean,
The boy is back in town.
I think you've only really been out of studio for a month
Yeah, thereabouts.
since last you were in studio. at
When's the
least.
last I was in studio?
And then
This
it'll
is a
be.
studio? I thought it was a basement.
It's
Those things are not mutually exclusive.
Okay.
correct.
Therefore, it is both a basement and a studio.
Yes, a basement, a multi-use basement, among which is studio.
Yeah.
Not unlike, I'm sure, a lot of other podcasters. Some are fortunate enough to have their own studio, but alas.
Like a studio.
Yes.
Like an actual studio, not the corner of a table that used to be in a Newman Center library.
That is currently populated by far too many monitors.
From
And
said
far too many
lab.
microphones.
The
And-
monitors
No,
from
really,
said
it's
line.
really it's just the right amount of microphones. You know,
I mean,
you have
one
a
per
1-to-1
person.
ratio of microphones to people.
I was exposed to I was introduced to the concept of, what was the name of the microphone type? It was, the way it works.
Condenser,
No, it's not condenser.
cardioid,
No,
XLR.
no, it was, it's a type of microphone that is set up in such a way to mimic the way your ears collect sound.
Binaural?
Binaural. I think.
Binaural?
Yeah, I think that's how. Yeah.
The ear ones,
Yeah.
the head ones.
I don't like those. I mean, they're nice until someone leans to the left side of their microphone and you only hear it in one side of your stereo headphones.
Yeah.
But that just bothers me.
I feel like it's probably best for capturing ambient sound.
Or if you want to do weird ASMR stuff with this ear in particular.
But yes, the binaural. It looks kind of funky. The one that looked the most funky was one where it was designed to look like a face, and then the microphone's on either side of it.
So you get the idea, like, if you're recording around it, it's about... Yeah, ears. I had a thought, but then it just didn't come out of my... There's a filter between my brain and my mouth that is a little too tight sometimes because the words just kind of get caught up in there.
The ones you should and ought to say.
But even then, it's just... The words I want to say and should say and can say get stuck in there sometimes, too.
Mm-hmm. It's,
Yeah.
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 Yeah. Well, how are we doing?
Oh, good. Now that I'm done with all the school,
I'm not quite
done.
there.
Yes,
I
it's
can
very nice.
I can approve of being done with school.
I've got a couple more finals to finish up this week, but I've got one of my finals finished, so that's nice.
Nice.
My energy conversion, where about motors and generators and transformers and the like.
All that good stuff.
All the math involved with that, and all the stuff. Cool stuff.
Les mathématiques.
Les
Indeed.
numbers.
Les engineering.
Engineering.
I don't.
With the GUE at the end.
I doubt that that's the actual French word for it.
No, but it's the headcanon French word for me.
What is the French word for engineering?
Well, let's see.
Pull it up, Jamie.
All right.
Consult the Oracle.
Oracle has seen it in her visions. Let's just do Google Translate.
That's, yeah.
Well,
actually mean?
Wait, crap. No,
You
that's
can just type engineering.
uh,
Audibly selecting English as the language to translate from.
good grief, I should just use the auto select.
Press the X button. Okay, that there. Now you can now type the word engineering. This is great odd content for our audio
Audibly
podcast.
Oh, boy.
looking at Google Translate.
How's it
Oh,
going?
we weren't.
Ingénierie.
That's not too
That's
far
not-
off.
No, it isn't. Funny.
But yes, audibly reading word that audience can't see.
Yes, that is
Let's see
the
what
point
the-
of reading aloud. It's audible.
I don't know if you could hear that, but
Do-do-do-do-do. You got like those memes where it's like they'll put a person's name through Google Translate and it'll come out French and they throw a baguette on their hand and there's an Eiffel Tower in the background. It's like Anakin Skywalker, and then it's him holding a baguette and it's some French music in the background. It's stupid,
But hilarious.
silly.
Mhm. As all things should be.
Really,
Stupid.
everything.
Well, all memes anyway. Stupid but hilarious. Yeah. There's I had a thought and now it's gone.
You banished it. Good job.
Yes.
Indeed.
It is forbidden.
James is the thought destroyer.
Yes, indeed. Be gone. Thought. I went far too long before I understood what that word meant.
Ah.
Uh-huh.
Or the abbreviation, or however it is
The
classified.
acronym that it is.
Yes. And I was like, oh. I mean, fortunately, I only ever used it
Ironically.
ironically and with specific people and not just generally in the general. Yeah. No. Anyway.
Don't want to thoughtlessly drop words around.
No.
Indeed.
Yes. Wonderful weather we're having.
Actually, though, it's been really nice.
Yeah, it's been like 60s and it'll be 60s and
All right.
70s all week.
I'm normal.
Could use a bit of rain.
Well,
Yeah.
you could use a spot of rain.
Use a bit of a dry out.
Of course,
Right
you're
now.
not in seminary, so there's
I mean, I am in
You-
seminary,
right,
but
but
I'm
not
not
currently.
at
So
seminary.
basically,
What do you mean you're at seminary? I mean, I'm at seminary. What store are you in? I'm in the seminary store.
Go to the next. Why are you buying clothes at the seminary store?
Bless you!
The point is that I was trying to make is you're not in some foreign location from where we are, so our weather experiences are not totally different.
They are more equally linked.
We can talk about the fact that I've been in almost Kentucky, and now that I've returned to the Northlands, 45 degrees or whatever it is outside this morning felt cold, and I was sad.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I've been wearing jeans, and I'm comfortable today. That's unprecedented when I actually lived here.
Mm-hmm.
Normally, I would just be, like, boiling in these kind of temperatures, but alas, I've grown soft in my time in the Sutherlands.
In the Sutherlands. I guess, shout out to other seminarians we know who graduated from St. Gregory the Great.
The venerable,
Jasper.
illustrious Raspareller.
Yes. In
Mm-hmm.
he himself. Congratulations, sir, as you move on to major seminary. And who else do we know there? Oh, yes, Justin Radicke, also graduating, I believe.
Uh-huh.
So,
And, Kevin Lorsung's about to be ordained
yes, congrats,
Oh,
Kevin.
very, very soon.
You're, if you're listening, and I know you are,
We can't use that bit.
I know,
That's someone else's bit.
I know.
Are they listening though?
That's the whole point.
That's the bit.
That's
People
the
who
bit?
are very obviously not listening, and you
Mhm.
say, Condoleezza Rice, if you're listening, and I know you are.
Mhm.
Oh, sure. So what podcast was he stealing that from?
The Crunch.
Okay. If you were listening, which is
Which
most
you
certainly
are
not,
not.
but if you
Ethan
were,
and Patrick, if you're listening, and I know you are, forgive us for using your bit. But yes, monkey see, monkey hear, monkey
Monkey here,
Dude.
monkey audibly see.
monkey audibly do.
I mean, the second part of that is correct.
Yeah.
Right.
audibly seeing.
I mean, what
After a
what is
fashion.
hearing but seeing?
Seeing you through your ears.
I mean, both rely on vibrations, just of different sorts.
It's a good vibration.
Yes, that brought your sound waves to me. I don't know.
I mean, if you're blind, like feeling is the equivalent of seeing.
Okay.
Oh, that just reminded me.
Oh dear.
One of my favorite vines ever was like my this is my blind dog watching this action movie or something, and it just shows it just shows like it shows the TV and then it zooms out and the dog is like sitting but facing with
The
his back
opposite
to
direction.
the TV. And I don't know what it was about that particular one that just killed me, but it was quite I really appreciated that. But yes.
So, I was praying morning prayer this morning,
Oh yes. This is quite good.
and I was using iBreviary,
Mm-hmm.
and the hymn they supplied for morning prayer had had these lines in it: "Till Trump from east to west shall wake the dead in number." And I just looked at that and immediately saw so much
Lowercase
so
t.
much lowercase t, of
As
course.
in the shortening of trumpet,
Like-
right?
Mm,
or something else,
or maybe as in like triumph
sure.
over and against some other power.
Yeah, that's like the only way I could see that. Like in context even, it's like, why did they use that word? But yeah, it's
Because Anglicans,
yeah.
man,
Frickin' angles.
freaking Anglicans.
Anglicans.
But anyway, I have just like had meme ideas percolating in my mind all day.
Oh, for sure.
Of course.
I'm gonna have to make one.
I make
Tomorrow.
memes, Mom. That's what it's like. We had a family gathering this weekend, and my sister and her boys came later in the afternoon, and he logged into his school Google Drive on my mom's computer when nobody was paying attention, and then he pulled me over to show me all the memes that he is making in his school Google Drive. Nothing else in the school Google Drive, just the memes that he has created. He's sort of getting there. Like, I don't think he quite gets the point of like a punchline or context-based memes or anything like that. But
He has added text to pictures.
yes, it's mostly prequels stuff too.
Oh,
yeah,
prequel memes are
Prequel
good.
memes are fantastic.
It's pretty accessible for an 11-year-old such as himself.
Who is into the Clone Wars and Star Wars and such.
Yes.
So that sounds about like the sort of thing he would do.
Yeah. And I think it was like when he said that too, it was like kind of a non sequitur, like they were talking about something else, and it was like, "I make memes, Mom." It's like, that's a very 11.
You were just waiting for an opportunity to express the fact that you make memes, weren't you?
Yes.
You've been waiting like for the perfect opportunity, and now
And
that
then you're like, this one's good now.
Waiting for the correct opportunity to express is a very good way of describing my nephew. He needs to talk to somebody about something at most hours of the day.
and sometimes that's you over an Alexa.
Yeah. Well, they have like these kid smartwatches that you can only call like a limited number of people, like your parents it's connected to my sister's phone so she can see his call history and whatnot, you know.
Sure.
But yeah, he has a call list, so he'll like go down all the aunts and uncles on our side of the family to talk to about stuff. Trouble is, he usually calls like right as soon as he gets off school. So, but at which time I'm still working, so I don't often answer.
I wonder if my brother is now on that list and if he has received a call from him.
I mean, it wouldn't surprise me. And usually when I do pick up, it's something about his Legos or a thing he's doing, or a business enterprise at school that his teacher shut down and he's not happy about. You know, you can't just use good behavior class bucks as a currency for a black market in fourth grade. That doesn't really fly. But
Speaking of behavior and black markets
and flying,
and flying.
we're the Palladian Papists. I'm James.
I'm Nathan.
And I'm Riley.
Today we are talking about the Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
We're going to get a little super serial this week.
Yes.
One day, 3 lads from North Dakota were bitten by a radioactive television, and with their powers combined, they are Super Serial!
So yes, this episode I suppose could be considered super in multiple senses.
But we get super serious about serialized content.
Yes. Well, let's write that down. Eventually, I'll write it down when I edit it. So yes, those of you who are familiar with the MCU probably know the background of these characters.
MCU being Marvel Cinematic Universe for those of you who are not familiar.
Yes, and if you feel so brave, you can go back and listen to our early podcasts.
Very early, 3 of them podcasts,
Yeah.
over which we attempted to cover like 20-something movies.
That was before
It's-
James learned how to be concise with his synopsis.
you implying that James
I
has
have-
learned to be concise.
I'm much more concise with my writing than my speaking. Anyway, so this TV series is about 6 episodes, like a mini series, more or less. Takes place not long after the events of
Endgame.
Avengers Endgame. So you have Sam Wilson, aka the Falcon, is off. He still needs to make a living, so he's using his abilities in his wingsuit as like a contractor for the U.S. military, doing special missions and whatnot. So he's doing things like rescuing people who've been taken hostage in the air in this big wingsuit chase, and it's all cool and stuff. So he's off doing that, and let's see, the Winter Soldier or the White Wolf or whatever.
James
Bucky Barnes.
Buchanan Barnes.
Yes, James Bucky Buchanan Barnes.
James Bucky Buchanan Barnes.
Bucky. For sure, as his friends call it. That's what we called him. Bucky, James Barnes, is trying to. He had his Winter Soldier secret Hydra agent programming undone with the help of the Wakandans, but he's still trying to mentally come to terms with all the wrong he did, even though it wasn't completely under his control.
Kind of plagued by nightmares
Yeah.
and doesn't feel any sense of closure about anything. So he's going to different people that he has wronged over the years one by one and paying and coming clean, opening up, or like bringing people he helped into justice.
Yeah, as in Hydra people. So that's where their starting point is. And he's also in court mandated therapy,
Which he kind of despises.
Yeah, he doesn't, like, even though he needs it, he doesn't like it. So
Also, if you recall at the end of Endgame, old Captain America who
Steve
spent
Rogers.
his entire Steve Rogers, who spent his entire life in an alternate timeline, just living his life finally, bequeaths his shield to Sam Wilson, the Falcon. And so he has that at the beginning of the
Steve
series.
is gone. They don't say dead, they just say gone. We don't know where he is. He's just not here.
And we kind of don't need to know. He maybe went back to the other timeline. Maybe he just...
So the old Captain America is no more. And at the end of the Avengers Endgame, he gives his shield to Sam Wilson's like, all right, this is yours now. You've earned it. Go be Captain America now. But now, Sam he's like, feels the really heavy weight of the symbol and the responsibility of bearing the shield, has big shoes to fill after, Captain America, Steve Rogers. So he's like, I wonder if the shield wouldn't be better used as like a memory, as a memento and a monument to the man Steve Rogers as Captain America. So he gives it to the U.S. government to be placed in a museum. And then the U.S. government, though, is like, well, we kind of need a Captain America because PR and, we want somebody to wear a spangly suit and go around punching people we don't like. So they pick this guy.
this perfect soldier, John Walker. He's like won all the awards. He's done all the wars and stuff. And he's like perfect soldier, top candidate for being Captain America, according to the U.S. government, military people. So he just is Captain America now.
Yep, this is the new Captain America.
He can walk the walk and talk the talk and show up in all the talk shows and say, "Hey, I'm Captain America. I'm going to punch some flag smashers now."
Yeah. So as Nathan mentioned, the Flag Smashers, there's this organization that's this movement of people who are basically terrorists. They dance around that, but they're basically terrorists in this series. But so in the blip, as it was called during Endgame,
When Thanos snapped half the universe out of existence.
and this lasted about 5 years, and so the world was starting to rebuild. And then when the Hulk snapped again to bring everyone back with the Infinity Stones, they just all of a sudden reappeared.
The Iron Man.
No, the Hulk brought everyone back, and then Iron Man
Right, that's
snapped
right,
out.
that's right.
Snapped out.
Snapped out Thanos.
Yep. So all these people are now back 5 years later. Some of them, there's new people living in their house.
There's new people married to their wives, that sort of thing.
Yeah, people are displaced, because there's sort of a population reorganization based off of,
And so basically the UN has put together this coalition to help people repopulate and relocate and such.
And go back to their native countries. Because people were refugees all over the place. They couldn't find work in their native lands and all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm. And the problem with this is that it's a very complex problem, and it's taking a while, and people are, are suffering, and there's poverty.
And the
Apparently
people in power just kind of want to push things back into place so they can get some semblance of normalcy.
Mm-hmm.
So they're being a little hasty with things.
Yep. And so there's this group of people who have started this movement called the Flag Smashers, and they just want to do away with the old borders and the old way of doing things, so they can live.
Their oft-repeated slogan is "One world, one people."
Mm-hmm. They're like, why should we go back to the way things were before?
Wasn't it better when we could all live as a world instead
One
of like
human family, essentially.
Yep. So it sounds nice, and
But then they blow people up, and that
But
doesn't
then
sound
that's
nice.
that's not very nice.
yeah, we'll get to that. So, Sam, through his U.S. intelligence contact, is starting to learn about these people, and he's like, we should probably take a look at that. But meanwhile, back at home, he and his sister. Well, his sister had taken over like the old family, shrimp catching business, and that their parents left behind. But she's having difficulty making ends meet, and keeping the old family boat afloat. And Sam's like, "Well, come on, let's try to get this sorted out," And she's like, "I don't know.
You were
I don't know
off
if it'll
being a
work."
superhero, and now you come back and try and make everything right? Come on.
Like, she loves him, but he's just like, "Come on, you can't just fix everything." So he's got some stuff going on at home. And after discovering, Mr. New Captain America and his sidekick Battlestar, which is his best friend Lamar, war buddy, Bucky is all not happy that Sam gave up the shield
That B, Captain America is being treated like a disposable, replaceable guy.
because he was Steve Rogers' best friend for many years, and then was his brother in arms during World War II, and then eventually again.
And Steve was the only person to see through the Winter Soldier when he was programmed by Hydra and get Bucky out of there.
Put his title as Captain America and his life on the line to rescue him from being the Winter Soldier.
So basically, Bucky doesn't appreciate what Sam did giving up the shield and what the government did making a new Cap.
Mm-hmm. So he tags along with Sam as he's going after these Flag Smashers people, and they track him to this warehouse where it turns out that these people are heckin' strong, and they're lifting very large objects that they shouldn't be able to lift. And like, all right, well, they're stealing these vaccines that are meant for for this one camp or whatever. So we got to, take care of that, get these vaccines back. So they go over to the truck and get into a fight with these Flag Smashers people, who turns out they have super strength, which can only mean one thing: that somebody has managed to replicate the super soldier serum and is
Distributing it or replicating it.
Yeah, distributing it to some
The Flag Smashers.
the Flag Smashers. So that's a problem. Can't just have super soldiers running around beating the crap out of everyone.
So there's a fight on the trucks, and then
Captain America
2.0 and Battlestar show up and try to help him out, but
they all get beaten up because they're not quite prepared for this enemy. And so new Captain America, John Walker, is like, hey, why don't we team up? And then Sam and Bucky are like, nah, you're just a pretender. We don't want to associate with you. It's like,
It's like I respect Cap, and I want to be like him, and you guys are cool, and I want to. Can't we both be friends? This is Lamar. This is my friend Lamar.
Yep. Yeah. Pretty much.
This is my friend Lamar.
Yeah.
As we will see later.
Yes. Foreshadowing. Yes. So they sort of reluctantly not really work with them. I mean, they're chasing after a common enemy.
So they don't work together, but they end up running into each other because they're chasing a common enemy.
Yeah.
So they start. Bucky has a lead on where they can go talk to somebody about where the super soldier serum may have come from.
It's like that lead is is Baron Zemo.
No. First, they go see Elijah.
Yes.
Oh, no.
Isaiah,
Bradley.
different prophet.
No.
They talked to Isaiah first.
Yeah, but
and then
is that about the
He wasn't. It wasn't really a lead. It was just something that they talked to him. I mean, they thought he might know something, but he didn't.
Oh,
right.
So Isaiah Bradley, as it turns out, during towards the end of World War II, Cap, Steve Rogers went into the ice right and he went missing. So the U.S. government, during like the post-war and Korean wars, was trying to recreate the super soldier serum, and so given the history of racism in the U.S., like they were using black soldiers as guinea pigs for this program, and Isaiah Bradley was the one who was successfully made into a super soldier.
Yeah, the one who didn't die because of the side effects and actually worked well as a soldier.
Bucky, working for the Russians or Hydra, in Korea, met up with Sam Bradley and got beaten by him in a fight. Or no, Isaiah Bradley. And so they're like, hey, maybe this guy knows where they might have found more super soldier serum. And he's like, get out of here. I don't want to see you. You're just a reminder of that old life. Because after he had this very successful career as Captain America, they basically locked him up in a lab and experimented on him for 30 years. And he's only just gotten out. And he's old now. And it's all
and
bitter
the government
about it.
thinks he's dead because of how he broke out.
Yeah.
So.
A nurse helped him fake his death. So
You learn that a little later, but
right.
Yeah.
So that's Isaiah Bradley's whole deal. So
but now,
dead end on the super soldier serum there. So they go see their other contact who knows the stuff about Hydra because he was using the old files and stuff to track down Bucky for the whole plot in Civil War, which you can go watch that or whatever. Anyway, so Baron Zemo is in this prison from the events of that, and they bust him out, so he can help them track down people who might know stuff about super soldier serum, which takes them to this pirate colony city called Madripoor. And they're like, let's go talk to the power broker because this mysterious person probably knows where this stuff came from.
I don't think they went to the power broker to find.
But they're looking for the power broker.
Right.
Trying to get closer.
I thought they were looking for just the person who.
They were looking for somebody
Right.
who knew something. I don't think they were specifically going to the power
'cause
broker.
Zemo had like the contact who made this serum or knew how it was made, and they were trying to avoid contact with the power broker because that person is the
big crime boss.
He's the client of the super soldier serum producer.
Yeah.
and the one. Was it stated at this point that the power broker gave the serum to the Flag Smashers?
They stole the super soldier serum from the power broker, who's now trying to track them down, as well as the UN people.
Sure.
So they get, they meet up with Sharon Carter, who has been hiding ever since the events
Civil War.
Yeah, because she helped out Captain America, and then she became an enemy of the U.S. government for doing that. And she's like, all right, well, I think she gives them the lead, doesn't she?
Yeah, they all go to the docks and find the
scientist who had successfully recreated Dr. Erskine's super soldier serum, and there's a bunch of vials.
But then Zemo shoots him.
Yeah, because Zemo's whole shtick is that he's very anti-powerful people. He sees them as supremacists, people who wish to lord their powers over normal people, and he's very much not cool with that. So he's like, all right, well, the super soldier serum can't be a thing. And he agrees to help Sam and Bucky in the first place because they want to, take down these super strength flag smashers people. So they have a common goal there. Anyway, so he kills the scientist and smashes most of the vials.
Yeah, most of them.
Yeah.
Because the flag smashers still have some in reserve over there, but like
Yep.
they basically blow up the lab. So
Yep. And they managed to escape Madripoor because now all the Power Brokers people are chasing after them and whatnot. And so next they sort of accidentally again team up with John Walker and whatnot, trying to track down Carly Morgenthau, this young woman who is the leader of the Flag Smashers. Try to bring her in.
mm-hmm.
So they find her at the funeral of this lady who had sort of cared for her and these other displaced people. And so Sam Wilson, when we meet him in the Captain America, the Winter Soldier, that movie, he is working at the VA as sort of helping veterans process their trauma and whatnot. So he has experience with like
Counseling and such.
counseling and talking to troubled people. So he's like, okay, Mr. Gung Ho John Walker, I need you to hang back a bit and let me talk to her for a little bit, see if I can talk her down first.
I hate waiting.
Yeah. So he goes in there, tries to talk to Carly.
And it's really, really close to succeeding.
Gets really close to succeeding. John Walker, meanwhile, he's trying to do his best, but he kind of feels the pressure of being Captain America, and it's got feels like he has something to prove, so he makes rash decisions. So he doesn't give Sam enough time, and he barges in there with a shield and is like, all right, Carly Morgenthau, you're coming with me.
She's like, oh, this is what this was. And he's like, Sam's like, no, this isn't
Betrays
what
her
this was.
trust, basically.
This guy's just being dumb.
Yeah, basically betrays their trust. Her trust.
So there's a big fight, and her and her goons fight the guys. I think this is where she drops her. Oh, that she faces off with Zemo in like a room in this warehouse they're in.
Yeah.
And
Pursuing
in the struggle,
his own agenda.
right? She drops all the spare serums that she's been carrying around.
Trying to create more soldiers for the movement.
Mm-hmm. And Zemo's like, oh, I don't like these. I'm going to smash them. And he gets all of them asterisk because there's one that he kind of missed that John Walker finds. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
that's it. That's a thing.
So he kind of sneaks one into his pocket, like the one vial that hadn't been destroyed.
Mm-hmm.
And
then I think at this time, they just kind of chase her out and she gets away.
Yep. And so, let's see.
Isn't this the part where
Another thing that happens when we're
where
in the city.
Lamar gets?
No, I think
No,
that
not
happens
yet.
later.
Not yet. Is it? Isn't
So,
that? Doesn't
that's-
that happen there?
Meanwhile,
See, because John Walker has the vial and he talks to a
Right,
couple
right,
people
right,
about what would you take the serum? He's like, oh yeah. I would.
Yeah.
hypothetically, totally hypothetically, would you take the serum if you had the chance?
Also, while they're in town, Bucky meets up or is tracked down by some Wakandans, and they're like, "Hey, you busted Zemo out of jail. He blew up King T'Challa in Civil War, and we're kind of not over that."
T'Chaka.
No, T'Chaka is Black Panther.
I thought T'Challa was Black Panther.
Hold on.
Dun, dun, dun.
Dude.
Audible googling.
No, T'Challa is Chadwick Boseman, and T'Chaka was his dad.
Oh,
Anyway,
Why did I
so
have
you
that
you blew up
backwards?
the king in Civil War. So we want him. And he's like, okay, just let me have him for a little while longer, and then so we can track down Carly Morgenthau again, and then you guys can have at him. So like, okay, we're keeping our eye on you though. So yeah.
So,
Over time with stress, John Walker's starting to become more and more kind of unhinged and restless and grumpy. And so I think the Wakandans get impatient after a while, though, after they manage to track down
after the time
Carly
limit
again.
ends, they show up at their hotel room. It's like, hey, give us Zemo. And then John Walker's like, hey,
What's
let's
all this about?
Talk about this. And then there's a bit of a fight during which Zemo takes that opportunity to just kind of bow out and sneak out the hotel.
Yeah, and so in the kerfuffle, and then the Wakandans exit,
None
and
too pleased about the situation.
none too pleased about it. Walker's all miffed that he lost to these Wakandans in the fight, but they weren't even super soldiers.
Mm-hmm.
So they discover, meanwhile, Carly Morgenthal's like, you know what? We hate symbols. Let's kill John Walker, Captain America, and send a message to the world. After they've blown, she's kind of on this violent bent now, trying to, make a big show of things, and try to send a message to the UN or whatever. So they get into a fight with John Walker and Falcon and Bucky and Lamar. Battlestar Lamar. In the fight, Lamar gets killed by Carly, and John Walker she gets away, but John, since this was kind of his best friend, he sort of snaps.
Mm-hmm.
And
so as they're chasing the rest of the Flag Smashers out of the building, John Walker takes the serum.
well, I
thought he took
I
it
think
during the
he
chase.
I don't think he took
No,
it.
it was right before they went.
Yeah,
in,
before all
wasn't it?
this happened, it's become evident, like, oh wait, he's kind of kicking these people's butts now. I think he took the serum.
Oh wait, he broke the wall when he ran into it. Yeah, that's not
Yeah.
what normal people do.
No. So he's kind of, beating up these Flag Smashers, and
So,
in
now-
a fit
now-
of rage, kills one of them with the shield in front of a bunch of
And
people.
it wasn't even like a hot-blooded thing. Like, he just repeatedly rammed
This guy
the
was
shield.
down and
he was
begging for mercy.
He was not in a position. He could have done it more cleanly, I guess.
Yeah.
But-
So, the guy was down and begging for mercy, and John Walker just straight up just hammers him with the shield and kills him in front of all these people recording him.
So yeah, that not a good look for Captain America.
No. In the aftermath of this,
He
Bucky and Sam are like, hey, man, you're not right in the head. We got to get you back to
Give me
headquarters.
the shield.
Give us the shield. And he's like, no, this is mine. I'm Captain America. And so they get into a fight over the shield.
Look at me. I am the captain now.
Yeah. They fight over, they fight with him, and it's kind of brutal. And they finally disable him and get the shield.
Mm-hmm. So now he gets fired by the government from being
John
Captain
Walker,
America.
Because he made a very public international incident
Mm-hmm.
of killing this guy.
But he's actually kind of not fired because there's some other government lady who shows up and is like, hey, here's my card. We'll call you.
Mm-hmm.
So that's put a pin in it for the next movie or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean,
So
John Walker shows up a little bit later.
So
in the
now
series.
Sam and Bucky have the shield.
Mm-hmm.
And so they kind of take a little time out. They go back to Sam's place and fix up the boat and all this stuff to try to help his sister and so on and so forth. And at this point, Sam is like, okay, it's time for me to take up the mantle of the shield. Well, first he talks to Isaiah Bradley again. He's like, I just want to understand why you are so resentful of the title of Captain America and the shield. And he tells his, full story about how he was treated unjustly by the U.S. government. And he's like, it's asinine for a black man to carry the shield. And then Sam sort of takes this and ponders with it, and
then talks with Bucky about Cap and talks with his sister about stuff and just takes a lot of time to just sit and ponder. It's like, what does Captain America mean? What does America mean? What do I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And then just kind of
through that, he decides to take up the shield. And he's like, you know what? America, and this is a flawed symbol. America's made mistakes, but that doesn't mean I can't fight for it because I choose to.
Right. And then he gets Wakandan red, white, and blue armor, and that's cool.
And so he trains up and becomes the new Captain America. Meanwhile, Carly is up to her old tricks again, and as this time she's going to the place, I think in New York or DC or something.
Yeah, they're in New York. There's this big summit of the Global Repatriation Act that they're gonna try and vote on this
Some sort
big
of
bill measure thing to get people back in their countries, whether it hurts them or not.
Yep. And so Carly and her people basically take all these people hostages and lock down the building. So Sam and Bucky fly over to this place and try to start with Sharon Carter and try to start rescuing the hostages. And they get into this whole fight with the Flag Smashers. And meanwhile, John Walker, he makes his own version of Captain America's shield.
And puts Battlestar's little medal on the inside. Mm-hmm. It's his new. It's like not vibranium. It's just metal.
Yeah, but just regular shield. But he's still fixated on this idea that I am Captain America. I've got the super soldier serum. That should make me Captain America. Anyway, so he's there too, trying to redeem himself after a fashion.
Actually, he's not there to redeem himself. He's there for revenge.
Well, revenge against Carly.
He doesn't really redeem himself until a little bit later.
So,
there's
Falcon or Sam and Bucky managed to rescue these GRC or these UN people, and he's again trying corners Carly and his. They've basically been defeated at this point. She's multiple times tried to like kill hostages and stuff, and it's kind of totally morally compromised.
And she's also in this fight shooting to kill Sam. Yeah. But Sam's like only moving defensively.
He's like, I don't want to fight you. He's still trying to talk her down.
She knocks him down a couple of times, and he has a I could do this all day moment where he gets up with the shield. It's like I'm good to go.
Yep. And Sharon Carter's in the fight too, and so
she isn't in the fight. She just shows up.
She shows up, shoots
Carly when she's about to kill Sam,
and she dies after 2 gunshots.
Mm-hmm.
Because of no apparent reason.
Yeah.
Because super soldier.
Because we needed her dead, and we only have about 20 minutes left to do it.
Yeah. So that happens. That's kind of
very anticlimactic.
John sort of has a bit of a...
He has a moment of kind of clarity, kind of redemption during the big fight. There's like a van full of hostages that's like driving off a cliff. And he has is presented with the option of either tackling and trying to kill Carly and going after her, or saving the people. And he does the bigger Captain America thing and saves the people
because he's a soldier at heart, after all.
So that was a good moment for him. We can bring that up later in goodness.
Yeah.
But that was nice.
So the fight's over, and then Sam Wilson goes and gives a monologue as the new Captain America to these GRC UN people, like, do better for 5 minutes. And it's like, okay.
That was probably more ham-fisted than the rest of the show was.
Yeah.
Have been.
The rest of the show had compelling setup, and that was just we needed to get this in, so here it is. Bye.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so now Sam and Bucky are much better friends.
Bucky is pretty much come to terms with all the guys on his list that he wronged.
And is really, really fessing up about it.
Mm-hmm. He's supportive of Sam as the new Captain America. He's like, all I can do is support Captain America, so now you're the Captain America, and I support you.
And then John Walker is no longer Captain America, but he's U.S. agent, and he's got a black suit.
It's the
same.
But
black. So we have a black Captain America and a black Captain America. And plot twist, but kind of not. But Sharon Carter is the power broker.
Yeah, and she's been reaccepted by the U.S. government because of Sam's intervention. But she's like, all right, now we have access to the U.S. government.
It's not as though she was the only other character in the person we met in Madripoor.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's the Falcon and the Winter Soldier synopsis right there.
That's the synopsis.
Yes. What do we like about?
Should we start with things we didn't like, or start with things we liked? Do we want to end on a positive note?
Yeah. Okay. What didn't we like about Falcon and the Winter Soldier?
The primary thing that I didn't like was kind of the very last episode where they're just like, global repatriation bad, bye.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, yeah, this is a really complex issue, and you gotta treat it like it is. I mean, the way that Endgame ended sets up these really, really interesting questions about how the heck life goes on after people have been unblipped. And they have an opportunity to provide some really interesting responses, but they're just like, trying so hard to make Carly this sympathizable with character.
But then she kills a building full of
And,
agents.
yeah,
Or
she's
blows
just-
up a building full of agents.
She does things that really cross a line,
Yeah.
and they still try to make her relatable.
Well, I think they were going for making her a tragic character, but it ended up being like, trying to make her more sympathetic. It's like, but she's a terrorist, though.
Don't call them terrorists.
But that's a
that's what
literal
they are.
definition of terrorist. Using violence to achieve a political
But
end.
yeah.
But anyway,
So yeah,
So
that,
that
That's
was
not the read I got
not
of it.
handled the best.
I think they needed to decide what they wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
And if,
They
these-
being the writers.
they being the writers, everything else that the MCU has ever done has been, they know the point they want to make before they start doing it.
Mm-hmm.
So that tends to make me believe that this was all very intentional.
Yeah. And then
And like all
also,
the episodes up until this point have been interesting and nuanced and taken
I
several.
mean, there's like, Sam's conversation with Carly in the earlier episode, where she's starting to come to terms a little bit with the fact that what she's doing is wrong. And Sam has made that perfectly clear where he stands. It's like, I agree with your fight, but I can't agree with the way you're doing it. And that's exactly it. But then they kind of abandon that notion as the show goes on.
Yeah. And the other thing too is like it's the racial commentary present in the show is like it may have been planned from the start, but events of the
well,
last
it's naturally
year.
part if you got Falcon being Captain America.
And once again,
that's an element.
that was very intentional and forethought, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And they did it really well up until the last monologue. Is like, they tried to jam so much stuff into that none of it made any sense and was not impactful. They're like, we just got done with a cataclysmic fight with these terrorists, and now we're gonna lecture you about racism.
I mean, the whole Isaiah Bradley arc landed really well, I think.
I really agree.
Yeah. Honestly, between this, it was very much as nuanced as Black Panther was. I like Black Panther for like not being in your face and ham-fisted about it.
But
for
it
the most
doesn't
part.
dance
It doesn't shy
around it
away
either.
from it.
Yeah.
It's part of the narrative.
Because at the end of one of the things that Sam does at the end is he gets Isaiah Bradley memorialized in the Captain America Museum.
Right. So he's
He
now
pulls some
a part
strings.
of that American. His part in America, Captain America history hasn't been erased or overlooked.
Because he's been trying to prove to Isaiah that, America still has issues, but it's different than it was then. Like it's possible for his story to be told now. Trying to bring good out of it, because he's still like he's not blind to the problems in the United States, but he's at the same time he's trying to draw good out of it. So, but I guess anything else that we didn't like in before we get into things we do like, which we're sort of doing a little bit.
That's it.
I think the
for
things we didn't
that
like
I had
were
major issues with.
Yeah.
I think the things we didn't like transitioned naturally into the conversation we were just having about some things we did like.
Wyatt Russell did an amazing job. He's the actor for John Walker.
Yeah.
He had a phenomenal performance.
That was a really good character. The interesting thing about John Walker as a character as Captain America is if you remember watching the first Captain America movie, when Steve Rogers was in the training program for the candidates to become Captain America, there was the Tommy Lee Jones general guy had this one soldier he had singled out as being the best candidate. He was the perfect soldier,
He's strong,
scored really
he's
highly,
fast, he
strong,
follows
fast,
orders.
follows orders. And that's exactly what John Walker was. John Walker was the government's idea of what Captain America was and should be. Not what Dr. Erskine saw in Steve and not what Steve saw in Sam.
Because the whole thing about the super soldier serum is that it amplifies everything about you, including your personality. So if you have a flawed personality, it's going to amplify that. And the same thing with Steve Rogers' case. He had a very selfless, humble personality, and that was why he made a good Captain America, a good super soldier, because he was a good man.
And the other thing is, it's like you have someone who has known strength and power their whole life and give them more strength and power, and they're going to abuse it like they've been abusing power their whole life. You take someone whose only known weakness, and respects power in a different way, and give them power. They're gonna, with the attitude of Captain America, I should say, they're gonna treat it responsibly.
Yeah.
It's this great power, great responsibility.
The show definitely contrasts John Walker with Steve, even though it doesn't show Steve at all.
And I read an article that even compared the details of John Walker's uniform to there are things that are just ever so slightly off about it compared to the original Steve Rogers uniform.
Off is the way to describe.
The horizontal stripes are part of the U.S. agent design from the comics.
The A on his helmet is also a star for some reason, and,
right?
These.
But where Captain America had the vertical stripes, he has the horizontal stripes and the stars in the corner, and not. So it's he's visually a different kind of Captain America.
But I think, Wyatt Russell, like Riley was saying, did a really good job of portraying John Walker, who's just okay, do I like him? Do I not like him? What's his deal?
Because he's just a complex dude. And he does a lot of things that you're okay, yeah, he's just trying to fight for his country here. And then he does some really significant mistakes. And then he works to do the right thing again. So he's this super relatable guy because he's not perfect.
Yeah.
And he makes some really bad mistakes that are really consequential, and he has to live with them, and he does.
It sort of epitomizes the attitude of a lot of veterans, because he had received the Medal of Honor and stuff. He's before Lamar dies, they're sort of talking to each other. It's
we were this survivor's guilt about.
Yeah, it's we were awarded for the worst day of our lives. Where we lost our buddies and all this stuff happened. And Sam and Bucky at the beginning are I don't know, did you jump on a grenade? And he's actually I did. So because that captain is that whole thing. So he's a very complex character. And apparently it got a very negative reaction online, and then
people are sending him death threats and stuff. I'm okay, do you realize he's acting?
He's acting.
This man's an actor.
But then Wyatt Russell just took it in his stride. He's it means my performance worked because that's the way you're supposed to feel about this guy.
Right. It would have been super easy to just take the U.S. agent character and say, new Captain America bad, white Captain America bad, but it's more complex than that. It's about how veterans are treated and about how the attitude of a soldier is different from the attitude of a hero in this context.
Yeah.
So they managed to take a B-list Captain America universe superhero from the 80s and 90s and turn him into one of the most interesting parts of this show.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we already kind of addressed Carly, I suppose.
Yeah,
Carly also a complex character, just refused to repent from her mistakes,
which is tragic.
Yeah,
and she even doubled down on her mistakes in the later episodes.
For as, I guess, inadequately as she was written, the performance was still pretty good.
I don't know, if she herself was written poorly. I think it's the attitudes of people toward her, given what she's done. The character in a vacuum makes sense. She acts consistently. She's got this deeply seated belief that, violence is the only language these people speak. It's the only thing that's going to get them to respect us and to change their minds about anything. So we have to do that. And she consistently sticks with that. So, her, but in isolation, is fine. It's just the way that people view her is no, right. At a certain point, she becomes a lost cause, and I think some characters are not written to recognize that when they should be.
Yeah,
that's my point with her. So her character by itself is fine.
Yep.
I like the writing on that.
And the interesting thing about her whole violence is the only language they speak. That may be true for John Walker or the Winter Soldier, but not for Falcon, not for Sam. Sam, for the entirety of the thing of the show, is trying to talk her down and win this non-violently.
And Sam, his whole deal, he's always the optimist, right?
Trying to.
He's see the good there's nothing he can't try to bring good out of, And so the sort of challenge he faces in the show is okay, well, can he get this loan for his sister for their family business? Can he
is
talk
the boat
Carly
salvageable?
Down? Yeah.
is the boat salvageable?
Yeah.
Is there good that can be drawn from this system, from this environment, from the symbol of Captain America?
Mm-hmm.
And he believes there is.
Yep. Yeah. While first, parsing through all these things and acknowledging their realities, he still comes to the conclusion, like, yes, I believe we can draw good out of it, and I can be Captain America while considering all these things.
Mm-hmm.
So
And another thing I think that they might be trying to do with the whole Flag Smasher thing is kind of an analog for the civil rights leaders in the 50s and 60s.
Mm-hmm.
Because you had Malcolm X, who was kind of adopts Carly's position. Violence is the only language these people speak. We have to violently revolt for equality.
Mm-hmm.
It won't happen any other way. Contrasted with Martin Luther King Jr., who's all about the nonviolence.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And so you have these two people with the same goal that are going about it in very different ways.
Mm-hmm.
And so you kind of see that paralleled in the attitudes of Sam and Carly, respectively.
Mm-hmm.
Carly and Sam, respectively, I guess, in the order that I said it.
Also,
So that could be something they're going for.
It makes sense now that you say it like that. Yeah.
Also, the Flag Smashers as a group was never a thing in the comics.
Yeah, it was
but
a singular
Flag
character.
Smasher was a singular guy.
Yeah.
That they, adapted into Carly Mogenthau and her movement, which was which is interesting. It's
Yeah.
cool.
And
Oh, and
makes a
then-
lot of sense given the state of the world that they
Right.
were in.
They adapted the characters and scenarios for the MCU, and I think that's consistently impressive to me, how they continue to take these classic characters and ideas and stories and piece them into the MCU really neatly.
I think another thing I liked about it was the contrasts. If you're familiar with the whole Captain America saga in the MCU, the contrast that they draw between John Walker and Steve Rogers.
Mm-hmm.
Visually, shorthand is because there's that moment where he's got the shield raised above his head, going to strike this guy who's
Which
down.
is just like in Civil War when Captain America is fighting Iron Man, and he has Tony in the exact same position.
Mm-hmm.
Where does Cap go? He goes for the arc reactor to disable him. Where
Instead
does
of
Walker
killing him.
go? He goes for the neck.
Kills him, and then other things too, John Walker is very assertive, like I am Captain America, trying to earn and keep the title for himself.
To prove himself.
Steve Rogers is usually portrayed as sort of sheepishly accepting the mantle, or he acknowledges it, but it's he never really asserts himself as Captain America,
Right.
because he just
doesn't-
kind of sees himself as like in the first movie is so those are your choices, a lab rat or a dancing monkey, he's and then when he rescues those guys from the prison camp, he's just I'm Captain America, I punched Hitler 200 times,
He to him, he's the guy from Brooklyn.
Yeah.
He even says as much to Spider-Man in Civil War.
Mm-hmm.
But that is the difference between John Walker is actively trying to be Captain America and prove to be himself worthy, not just to everyone else, but more to himself than anything.
Yeah.
But Steve just kind of is Captain America.
And he sets aside the mantle too when he sees it's no longer compatible with his morals.
Mm-hmm.
But takes it back on again for the final fight. So yeah, I guess that's one of the main things.
That's
I like
just some of
was-
the cool stuff.
Yeah.
Storytelling wise.
Yep. Well, I guess with that we can go into transcendental analysis. Truth. What are some truths that we can find in Falcon and the Winter Soldier?
Don't be mean.
Don't
be
selfish.
Don't be racist.
I am a building. In all seriousness, the way they treat race issues in the show is overall pretty good. They're the whole story with Isaiah Bradley and Sam's kind of
Current
current experience in the world, juxtaposing the way things were in the 40s and just the attitudes that a lot of African American people have. And they encapsulate those nicely, and they aren't super assertive about one particular way to solve things. They're acknowledging injustice and kind of posing against it recognition. Like, that's the important thing that they want to establish.
And
Just,
rejection.
just get people to acknowledge that there are problems. That's step one. And
Mm-hmm.
that's what they're going for.
And then the question the show wrestles with is, do we do this through violence and force, or do we do this through peaceful persuasion and, upholding righteousness, which is ultimately the path that Sam chooses.
Right.
And is ultimately the right one.
Yeah. Through dialogue, because that's Sam's first weapon throughout the series, really.
But also he shows it through his actions, through what he does.
Yep.
Like, I don't think there are very many times where in like a one-on-one fight Sam actively tries to kill somebody.
Mm-hmm.
Even when like there's that final chase with the helicopter, he more tries to find a way to
Drop 'em
extract
in
the
the
bad
river.
guy and drop him in the river rather than,
Just straight up killing him.
shoot him like Sharon Carter or
Even though I'm pretty
Bucky
sure if you
would.
flew through a helicopter cockpit and tackled a guy, you'd probably kill him. But
Anyway,
anyway,
it's
it's a superhero movie. Like, physics aren't the
What?
biggest.
What are those?
Yeah. That thing doesn't obey the laws of physics at all. What's another thing from the show? I had a thought. It was there.
Which character was it about?
I think it was for Sam, or no, about the super soldier serum. Like, I guess personalities in general, and who you are and your essence and whatnot. It's not as if some sort of super soldier serum can change you and make you into a different person. Just because you have access to more power doesn't make you better.
And
Right.
in fact, it generally amplifies your existing traits.
Mm-hmm.
think
And
when-
it's not just with physical strength as like a super soldier, right? But if like access to power, if you are sort of a selfish person on the inside, that's going to be amplified when you have more power. Or if you're a selfless person and you have power, that also will be amplified, for better or worse. So, like, that whole concept I find fascinating. But yeah, it's not as if some external access to power makes you different, because you still have to be a virtuous person to exercise
I
power
think
virtuously.
when John was talking to Lamar about what if you had access to the soldier serum, would you take it? And Lamar's like, I don't think it would change me. It would just make me more. Power just makes you more of who you are, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And that is kind of the case, because John Walker was kind of brash and just was a soldier that followed orders, and well, that's kind of what he is more so now.
Yeah.
But I also thought it was interesting when Zemo was talking to Falcon about, would you take the serum if it was offered? And Sam was like, nope, like immediately without thinking,
Mm-hmm.
because
No hesitation.
no hesitation whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
Because he's like, he doesn't value power like that.
Mm-hmm.
He is more of the nonviolent type.
Heck, he only reluctantly accepts the mantle. Well, not reluctantly. Like, at first reluctantly, and then eventually comes around to taking up the mantle of Captain America, because he's very humble and isn't one to, like, grab for power. And they sort of acknowledge, even Zemo is like, well, the power didn't corrupt Steve Rogers, and he's like, touche. But that was because he was an exceptional person.
Not everyone's a Steve Rogers.
Yep.
Another thing that I think is kind of touched on more so early in the series is kind of some mental health issues and like the way that Sam and Bucky are both dealing with their own respective issues.
Yeah.
I mean, Bucky's are much more pronounced and like traumatic because he, murdered people and stuff.
Against his own will.
Against his own will, but he still
he
has
was
to
there
live
in the backseat
he,
driving.
He has the memories of his body doing that. He sees that stuff through his own eyes, and that sort of thing would obviously be deeply traumatic.
Yeah.
And at the beginning, he's totally unwilling to admit that he is still suffering from that. And his therapist, who's kind of a no-nonsense lady, is calling him out on it. He's like, you got to be honest with yourself, man. Otherwise, you'll never be healed. You got to bring it out to the light. And so I think it had a really interesting treatment of it, where it's not just like, sunshine and rainbows mental health care, but it's like kind of this gritty reality that life sucks, and so you have to admit when things have gone wrong and really be open and honest about it in order to be healed and move forward.
And I think towards the end of the series, like that's kind of where Bucky finds himself.
And he kind of has to relinquish some things he's, built up over the years, like his friendship with this one older guy whose son he killed.
Because
Easily.
his son was just in the wrong place at the wrong time when the Winter Soldier was there.
Yep.
Goodness. What is good in the Winter Soldier or Falcon and the Winter Soldier?
Sam Wilson's pretty good.
Sam Wilson's
He's pretty good.
solid dude, and like it's consistent for his character through the MCU to this point.
Yeah.
He joins up with Captain America, wants to help him out of the goodness of his heart, putting himself on the line.
And also because he recognizes the goodness in Steve.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And
He
Steve-
sees a role model and someone who's really genuinely fighting for good.
And because of all these qualities in Sam, Steve sees him as worthy of taking up the shield after him. What else?
Over the course of the show, you've got Sam and Bucky, who really kind of come closer as friends over the course of the film. That's the series, I should say.
Yeah, because they sort of bickered in the past, when they were both Steve's sidekicks after a fashion. They had sort of this, but then like through, they had a therapy session together and they had to air out their grievances, and where Bucky is like, I'm kind of mad at you for giving up the shield.
Because if
Steve
you don't
gave it
think
to you.
Captain America was right about you, then I don't think he must not have been right about me. So that was one of the more telling moments. Was like, oh, that Bucky's like self-image is very much tied to the way Steve saw him.
And I think towards the end of the series, he manages to kind of let go of that and form his own identity.
He manages to let go of most of his past at that point. Start forging his way forward.
It's like, I'm not the same Bucky Barnes that fought in World War II. I'm not the Winter Soldier anymore. I have to make something of myself now. So
Then you also got Sam spending time with his sister and his nephews and really being a protector for them.
yeah, because one of the things that Carly does is threaten her and her boys. And it's like, okay,
That's scummy. Don't do that. That's just making you look really bad now.
yeah. So that's another thing too, where it's like, yeah, she's not really all that sympathetic, guys. She's threatening innocent people and killing innocent people. Anyway, beauty.
Baron Zemo dancing.
Yeah. I don't know. That was something I just sort of noticed in the moment, like, yeah, that's kind of funny. And then they released an hour loop of that. Like the official Marvel YouTube channel released an hour loop of that. And it was kind of a thing. But no, well shot, music is good, acting's good, editing's good.
It's just standard MCU stuff.
Yeah.
It's all very high production.
On
quality.
par with
Basically anything
Winter
that's
Soldier,
come out
Civil
on Disney
War.
Plus at this point.
Yeah.
It sort of keeps like the aesthetic of like the Captain America films since the Winter Soldier.
Right, in terms of its use of color and its lighting and stuff. It feels very much like
Which
Winter
is nice to
Soldier.
kind of have that continuity, I think.
Yeah. It's very much Captain America 4, but like
But
Cap-
but
Cap
a 5
without
hour
Cap.
film split up
Epilogue.
into 6 chunks.
It's the
Right.
it's sort of an epilogue to the Cap saga from the main movies.
it's basically rebooting Captain America to be Sam Wilson.
Yeah, I believe the writers from the show are currently working on
A new movie?
a new movie for Captain America. So I guess we'll stay tuned for that. Unity. What brings this all together?
The shield.
Yeah.
I mean, the shield is like the central symbol. It floats around between people. It's a symbol of Captain America. It's got a great big star and stripes on it. It is kind of the central thing that ties all the ideas together. Everybody has their own perception of what the shield is. To some, the shield's a weapon to cut people's heads off. For others, it's a defensive tool to defend the country and those they love. There's like I feel like that's one of the central symbols of the show.
Yup. Well, on that note, please don't shield yourself from this podcast. Thanks for listening to the Palladian Papers. You can listen to us on Spotify, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, and Apple Podcasts. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook at Palapapists. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, or complaints, or suggestions for future episodes, email us at palladianpapists@gmail.com. So yeah, we will talk to you guys next week. Adios.
Bye.
Yeah.